start us live and then start sending out the fucking all sorts of shit.
Matter of fact, let me what's it called? Um, what's it called? Share it on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm putting it on Snap right now.
Yeah.
Dude, we're getting there. I think I just went on there. I think I saw it said I had 17 subscribers on this channel now. I think
Hell
that's what
yeah.
I saw.
You getting there you getting there consistently, brother. Like
Fuck yeah,
I
we're
really
getting there. I know it's
and
kind of dumb because like it is kind of a lower number, but like we're coming up on our 10th episode, dude. It's kind of crazy, you know?
oh yeah, absolutely, man. Because ultimately, like any progress is better than no progress, bro. Like I learned that a long time ago.
For sure. It's also, even though it's only 10 episodes, man, it's been a minute. 'Cause, like, we do this once a week, and there have been a couple weeks where, like, I'll have something come up, you'll have something come up, or even we just take a break week, you know? So, like, 10 episodes is like 2.5 months, but you factor in the breaks we've had, I can recall at least four. So we're going on, what is it, 4 months now of doing the podcast?
Hell yeah. Like it's beautiful, man. Like to be able to actually to be able to have this and be able to look back, especially once everything actually goes the way you want it to go, we can be able to actually look back on all the work and everything we talked about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I've just been thinking about like other things to do and where to take it all. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of against it, and if I do it, I might make it like a separate thing and not even like link it up at all, right? But I was actually thinking about starting like a gaming channel, you know?
Oh yeah, that will be actually like super dope for real because I already know like you got like the personality and like the clever wittiness to have people watch you for real.
I appreciate that. But like I said, I'd probably make it like not really an offshoot, but a separate thing. So like, I don't think I'd advertise either side on either side. Maybe advertise the gaming over here, but like I don't know. Maybe I don't think I'd connect them just because I remember back when we were starting this podcast, we talked a lot about splintering uh, viewer bases and stuff, and I kind of want to avoid that still, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. And even with me being on TikTok and whatnot now, I'm trying to figure out the what's the like the basis of the stuff because I'm gonna do what you were actually talking about, like posting hot takes, but I'm gonna actually try
Post little
to get
snippets,
into
you know?
yep. And then also now that I'm here, I'm actually been the wheels have been turning in my head, and I'm actually start doing some new ideas like some skits when I just to show more of my personality.
Fuck yeah, dude. I'd love to see that.
Like it's gonna be a hell of a thing. Oh yeah, also before we actually get started, like for the instant possible change, I'm actually very excited for this because I have like some crazy examples that I'm actually gonna drop.
Dude, I'm fucking. If you're down to make this like a. Because I know normally we just go until we kind of really don't have much to say. We try not to make it like too bloated. But like if this ends up being a topic where we just go, because like this is one that hits me home. Like anyone who truly knows me knows for a fact that I used to be a lot different than I was now. So this one hits me like deep, you know?
Absolutely, like hell, like I'm excited because I'm actually give an example, especially then I'm going more about like how like the generational type thing. I'm actually excited. Like we could actually kick it off in a couple seconds if you want.
Uh, I'm down for that. Though there is one thing that I did want to save till we were live, but not so much for the actual topic that we got on hand.
Mhm.
So, is dumbest thing, and it actually kind of goes back to I think it was our last one, the shallow mindset.
Yep.
I was watching Beauty and the Beast, right?
Right.
Tell me why the only thing that pops into my head, right, is why these bitches out here growing up hating a man like Gaston, but then start clinging to an act like an honest to God Gaston in real life, bro. Tell me why.
Bro. These motherfuckers literally get taught like, oh, you can want what you want. Like, oh, there's nothing wrong with like giving into your desires. What they don't tell you is everything that glitters ain't gold.
Yeah, dude. I just sitting there. I was like, man, this Gaston guy's annoying, but I know a couple people like that. you know,
Oh
and,
yeah,
and, and it's just I found it funny. I found it real funny.
man. And hell, like they'll tell hell nowadays they'll just say, oh, he's not arrogant, he's just confident. Anybody who has a problem with it is probably just insecure. Of course they're gonna deflect and say shit like that. But I digress. Like,
Just whatever. It was just a little thing I noticed, and I thought it was kind of funny. Kind of.
man, absolutely, man. But are you ready though?
Yeah. Let's do it. Welcome back, episode 7. As we were just talking about a little bit before that, 7. It's such a low number, but it's kind of crazy that we came this far. This week, is it impossible to change? Take it away, Quan. What you got to say?
Man, like the reason why I actually brung up this topic is because I've seen a lot of people actually having a debate as far as this person literally try to say, oh, some people can't change no matter how hard they try. But I was more on the side of the other dude who said, no, you can change, and that some people just don't want to. And the excuses that the dude was given that said that it's impossible to change literally just didn't add up. Because ultimately, even when some people try to say that they don't have a choice, you always have a choice.
Yeah, actually, I kind of fall in a very similar mindset to where you're going with this. I do not 100%. I'm saying this weird. I do not think it's impossible to change. Everyone who knows me personally has seen me change a lot. Seen me do things that I was adamantly against. Seen me become something completely different. Where I'd like to put it in and why this idea that it's impossible to change comes up is that yes, there are a lot of people out there that don't want to change, and there are a lot of people out there that can't change because it goes back to that thing that we talk about actually in a lot of podcasts at this point, the conflict to your cognitive dissonance, the conflict to your belief, the conflict to what keeps you grounded, A lot of times it's not comfortable to change. It's not comfortable to believe you have to change. So even if you sit there and you tell yourself, yeah, I should change and all this stuff, it's not as easy convincing yourself subconsciously. So I believe that it usually takes something big happening in your life to truly spark honest to God change. There is little change that happens over time. Like growing up, that's undeniably true. But in honest to God fucking flip of a mentality or anything like that, it takes something really fucking big to shake that foundation.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, man. And to add to that, one thing that people need to realize, because I'll give an example of, let's say you have a parent who just had like a kid or whatever. Like I'll hear people say all the time that once I have this or that, I'm just gonna stop doing whatever. But the reality is, you're only saying that because it's something new that came into your life. You're not saying that because you really want to do. So ultimately, one thing I had to tell people is if you're not making this change for you, then it's not going to factor in because unless you feel that it's a problem, then you're just going to revert back to the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely a subconscious thing too. Cuz I've been in that position where I sat there I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll change," And realistically, I didn't want to. I was trying to change for artificial reasons, you know. This is a good segue and comment to bring up. I tried to change for the purpose of saving a dying relationship that was dying because we fundamentally didn't agree with each other on very, very important concepts. if you're sitting there and all you do is say, "Oh, I'll change," just because you want to save that, you're probably not gonna change because at that point, it's desperacy. It's you clinging. It's bargaining, is what it is, as opposed to actual change that, like I said, takes takes something big to shake the foundation. It's a lot of people romanticize the thought of change, but won't change until they are absolutely backed into a corner and forced to question the very ground they stand on.
Yep, you damn right, bro. And one thing I've noticed for people who actually don't want to change is they will like when a person who's looking for an out, they'll literally use like whatever little excuse that they have to try to get out of changing who they are. Like prime example, like I've seen some people talk about who have drinking problems, and they'll say something like, "Oh, well, wine is a lot more healthier than actual alcohol, so I don't see what the big deal is." I'm like, the big deal is you feel like you need it every damn day, and if you don't, you're gonna have a bad day without it. And one thing that I'm tired of people like, if you don't want to do something, if you don't want to change, just say that. But just say like, I don't feel like it, I'm lazy, whatever. But don't try to make up a bunch of damn excuses to why what you're doing isn't that bad.
Yeah, it's simply bargaining, and if you genuinely believe that, like, I can't even say if, like, if you're at a point where you're bargaining, saying shit like, "Oh, wine's better than beer, or beer's better than liquor," and which realistically is not true at all. It's all, you know, I
Really?
can't think of the word. It's all relative, really. Um, but if you're saying that you've already proven that you genuinely believe that there's no problem with your actions, there's the problem that you see isn't in your own actions. It's in the problem you think there is in how people perceive your actions. And
Yep.
you trying to justify it is you trying to change how they perceive those actions.
Right. Even when you look at people who might be obese, like you got people who can't even walk, can't even see their own feet. And they excuses, oh well, people acting like I'm a drug addict. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I'm like, how? But you can't even get out of bed under your own power. So is it really? So is that really a good thing that you trying to talk about? What I'm doing isn't as bad as anybody else.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that I think that one doesn't necessarily come into what I was saying with the justifying your view. That one comes to people justifying their inability to try. And that is the biggest thing, especially in America. That's a country known for obesity is people aren't willing to put in the effort. People aren't willing to make the sacrifice. People aren't willing to do what they got to do, you know?
Yep. And even segueing into the whole like the generational thing, for some reason, I've noticed, especially like when it comes to like the older versus the younger, what's it called? Because I had somebody try to tell me, oh, you should gear your content more towards like the people your age and younger because older people are more stuck in their ways. And I'm like, if you can acknowledge the fact that you're stuck in your ways, don't that mean that you could do something about it? Because to me, like, you can tell me if I'm wrong. To me, a person who has the inability to change wouldn't be able to acknowledge or recognize that they're stuck in their ways. But since you actually saying that you are, it means you know what the problem is and you just don't want to solve it.
Is you don't want to put in the effort to change it. You don't want to believe otherwise. Um, One thing I'd actually like to bring up that I find really interesting is if someone said that to you, that's very curious because outside of the your like anime based reviews and game reviews, that sort of stuff that you do, your
Mhm.
content still is kind of really pointed towards the younger audience, you know? Like even what we're doing now, I wouldn't say is so much pointed towards older audiences. If anything, younger people benefit more from different viewpoints and I'm not gonna sit here and say either of us are 100% correct, like guaranteed no fucking flaws, because
Right.
neither of us have the fucking certificates in psychology, you know that. We're just saying our viewpoints and stuff, and you resonate with our shit, you find the logic behind our shit, then that's good, you know? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get gears turning, you know?
Yep, yep, you're absolutely right. And even going a little further in the aspect of like the older generation, like I remember this story. It was this guy who pretty much had like some issues or whatever with the woman he used to be with, and he couldn't be around his kid. So his son kind of like resented him for it because he was like, "Why didn't you contact me?" and stuff like that. And it sounded like he was just making a bunch of excuses, saying stuff like, "Oh, well, if he know me, he knows I'm not really the kind of person. I'm not the kind of person to talk on the phone or be on social media and stuff like that." And I'm like, why is it that he has to adapt to you when you're the one who brought him into the world? Because you saying that you don't want to make these small little changes for whatever reason, what makes you uncomfortable, it just kind of shows in the sense of what we've been saying all this time. And even another aspect of how people will say like, "Oh, well, I'm too old to do this, this, and that." I remember it was this lady. She was literally like 100 years old, bro. I swear. She was sick. She changed her diet, went vegan, and this lady is running track.
All right. Okay.
So if a person that's 100 years old can make these changes at that point in her life, what is the excuses for everyone who's like 40, 50, or hell, even younger?
They just lack the willpower, is what it is. And it's ironic. Like, I view the world very much in a sense of coming from an avid gamer, you know. I I used to play games all day. I used to hide in my room, play games to escape life. So, moving into adulthood and the real world so much, I very much adapted a lot of philosophies that I got from there to that. And I see a lot of shit in games like, say, how you said old people are saying I'm too old to, let's just use social media and the calling as a thing. Like, I'm too old to do that. If we apply that game mentality that I told you, that would be the equivalent of playing like fucking, I don't know, play something like a Monster Hunter game, right? And
Right,
they bring out a new like a new monster to go fight, right? And you just going like, nah, dude, I'm too old. Like, what?
right,
Nah, dude, I played the old game. Like, that don't mean you can't enjoy what's new, you know? I very much look at life as a big game, and there's so many different avenues and activities you can do and stuff. And the thought that so many people are letting their age or what they're used to stop them from enjoying that aspect of life that may be new and exciting and shit is kind of crazy. Like, it's one thing if you try it and you just end up not liking it, right? You tried it,
right.
you did that, but to just completely to dismiss it entirely, not give it the time of day, that's just so mind-boggling to me, you know?
Oh yeah, it definitely is, man. And even like doing a little bit of self-reflecting, I took a look at a person like myself. I realized that I was a lot more resistant to certain things than I actually realized. Hell, even the aspect of doing YouTube back then. And back then, I'll admit I used to talk shit about saying that, oh, what they always telling people to subscribe for. And I was so sure that I would never do that. But what do you know, years later, now I'm doing this. Hell, even making things like TikTok or simple things like putting music behind my videos. I was super resistant to doing that because I thought I had a set way that worked. But then once I actually took a look at it and just tried it, I ended up liking it and I realized that it's not that bad. So if I wasn't willing to actually look past what I was used to, I would have never gotten to the point where I am today.
Yeah, and it's a very interesting thing you brought up because I'm not gonna lie, I was in that same boat too. Specifically, I think a big one that we can talk about that a lot of people, specifically in our generation and a little bit over, can relate to is TikTok. TikTok is something that I feel gets a very big, very bad rep because of how it used to be and how some parts of it is. Yes, there's absolutely cringy, fucking stupid things on there. But if you look past that and like you go into it and look at what it could be as well and give it a shot yourself, I feel like you're taking something that is neither good nor bad realistically, like it just is, you know? And you're projecting thoughts because of someone who made shitty content or because of something. You know, back when TikTok was borderline fucking just a new age musically, yeah, that was cringy as fuck, like fucking whatever. But if you look at it
But
now, it's something a lot closer to what Vine used to be, which Vine ended up being something that was widely loved despite, you know, it going under. Um so if you look at it now, it actually a lot of people find enjoyment out of it and it's a very good platform for as you know you're going to be using it for you're going to be putting in like little skits and little quick fucking notes, basically like a notepad, you know, a visual notepad for thoughts you had, you know, and
yeah,
it can
absolutely.
be very good for that, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And it just took me to change that aspect though, because the reason why I wasn't rocking with it, because at first I thought I was just like, I was just like following or whatever, and I was just like, man, I'm not finna flood in with everybody else. But then I realized that just because you do something doesn't mean that you like, and you can do something just for you, because that's like a person like getting like a new pair of shoes and some random person that you don't even know across the world said, only reason you wearing those is because of me. I'm like, I don't even know you. You all the way in Colombia. Like the fuck? So
Yeah,
I just had to get over my own mentality.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of people who they base themselves off of fundamentally incorrect thinking. Actually, I was just recently watching one of the little snippets from Dr. K. I don't know if you've seen him on YouTube, the healthy gamer guy.
Oh yeah.
And he was talking about how like some people will be told they're smart growing up and that sort of thing, and build up an image of being smart, and it makes them act in a certain way because they want every single one of their actions to further that idea of them being smart. And what I didn't hear him touch on is he just talked mostly about how that can lead to a very avoidant nature. I believe that can also lead to I don't just believe. I know it can lead to a very judgmental nature. As I was in that same shoe, I was told I was smart, so I tried to do things that perceived me as smart. I was told I was borderline genius, so I tried to make myself perceived that way, you know? So I avoided certain things like the party scene is a big one. When you're young, partying, going out and drinking, fucking doing drugs, that sort of stuff, you perceive that as a very stupid thing to do. So you end up hating it. You end up avoiding it, you know?
Oh yeah. And even to add to that, because honestly, what you said just literally hit me hard. Because people will try to make it seem like this kind of like it can create that avoidant kind of mentality, and it can kind of create that almost like superiority complex, because people will act like who've been told that most of their lives will act like certain things are beneath them, but in reality they can't even explain how it's beneath them, like
Yeah,
what having
definitely.
right, like having fun is beneath you. And that's just another aspect of how when people try to enforce some weird, unrealistic standard to what they don't even hold themselves to, just ultimately, like, of course, be mindful of what you do. But whatever you do is your decision because regardless, people gonna talk about whatever you do regardless. But it's up to you to actually make the change and make the decisions about what you want to do.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing preventing anyone from changing is realistically understanding. It's very easy to fall into a trap where you say like, "Yeah, I understand. I understand. I understand," but you don't understand. You just know. And they're two very different things about knowing what something is and understanding why something is. And that was something I fell into a trap of. Is I knew a lot about a lot of things, but like you said, when it came down to being like, "Oh, well, why don't you like this? Why don't you?" I found myself spitting hollow, useless retorts, you know, because I didn't actually understand. I didn't know fully. I couldn't tell you. I haven't been there and I hadn't did my research, you know. It was just how I perceived it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And it only just leads me to self reflect, like to self reflect more because along with not actually understanding, you actually got to get over the other people who may be around you who still don't understand themselves. So you may get out of that mentality, but the people who are around you may still be like, why are you doing that for? This is for blah blah blah. But yet they so stuck in their ways and they don't want to change. It literally just gives you a headache thinking like, all right, I'm not finna, even though I don't feel like explaining this to these people I'm around, I still gotta constantly hear them complain about it like all damn day.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely it's weird 'cause, where we're going, we're trailing into the conversation of open-mindedness, and it's very easy to not understand exactly what open-mindedness is, you know, because it's such a touchy thing. You can it is entirely impossible, or not impossible. It's entirely possible to be too open-minded, but being too closed-minded is very much a bad thing too. So it's kind of like you have to find a balance in it because you don't want to get to a point of open-mindedness where you're just believing fucking just about anything spouted to you, you know. I sat there, I've had people talk about like doing all sorts of different like harder and higher end drugs, like just about the ones outside of uh the super addictive ones. So crossing out like the big three, fucking meth, fucking crack, heroin. And they would tell me, they're like, well, yeah, all these people are saying that this and it's not that actually that bad, and they like take repercussion stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, I get being open-minded, but you're listening to all this advice from someone who is doing all of this. Like,
Right.
so there's I'm sure there's some truth in their words, but don't you think you should actually use your own head a bit there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just another thing too. Like, of course, like open, like having somewhat of an open mind is the key factor of changing. Because once you think you're always right, you literally won't get anywhere. And also to add to that, one thing I've noticed, especially when it comes to whatever actions people take, especially like with that, people who actually are in it, like you said, will find any way to justify what they're doing because they like it, truthfully.
Yes, yes, it's very that goes back to what we just talked about earlier, where people don't see their actions as the problem, they see how people perceive their actions as the problem. And it's a very dangerous thing to fall into, and you'll find any sort of substance abuse very easily falls into that category, you know.
Oh, that's real shit, man. And even like, and even going a little further, especially when you actually have a person thinks that they're who think that they're always right, it literally becomes a headache, especially like when you actually care about this person. because you obviously realize that as much as some people want to try to get others to change, recognize you can't help somebody who don't want to help themselves.
Yeah, actually, ironically, I was just about to bring this up. You can't help someone that doesn't want to help themselves, and if you try too hard, you're actually countering it. You know, if you try to strong arm someone into changing, 9 times out of 10, they're not changing.
Right? Oh yeah, that's another factor too because I've literally seen people try to force others to change based off of things that not even necessarily were like detrimental, but it was all because it was something that they disagree with. So they will literally tell them like, "Oh, I want you to stop doing this, and that. I want you to stop watching these shows. They're unhealthy for you." But the person actually, but the person actually like them. I'm not sure if it's some kind of like psychological term for this, but I believe that once you keep trying to force a person and trying to pressure a person into trying to do what you want them to do, it'll cause them to always go the opposite way of what you intend to, even if you have good intentions.
I don't know if there necessarily is a psychological term, but it very easily falls into that mindset of sort of, I guess, grouping is what you can look at it as. Because if you someone's strong arming you to change, they're usually very aggressive about it. They're very persistent. They're very, you know, incessant. And in that sense, that could be very annoying. That could very much make you build a disdain for that person and how they think, you know. Um, and that could further you to hate what they're trying to make you think because you lump it in with that person, that mentality, that sort of, I guess, aggressive nature. Whereas realistically, an idea is merely just an idea, you know?
Oh
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I think the biggest example of how, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is a while back, I remember, um, specifically with things like drugs and stuff, I always thought they were really, really bad, you know? And everyone around me that was doing it and shit, they were doing it solely just to get fucked up. They're doing it just to have a good time. They're doing it, realistically, you know, just to escape. And the thing that really hit me one day was that someone told me when I was, talking about possibly trying it, they were like, don't do it for the wrong reasons. Don't do it to get fucked up. And in that statement, it was like a fucking right hook to the jaw because it was like challenging everything I ever thought about it, you know? Don't do it for the wrong reasons. Don't do it just to get fucked up. When in reality, I thought that was why anybody ever did it, you know? I thought it was all they ever cared about doing it, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because even I look at in terms of the aspect of drinking, because obviously the drug thing ain't for me. But I look at how so many people drink and whatnot, and they'll literally just do it just to escape or just to calm themselves down because they had a bad day or something like that. And it literally turns into like a vice because like if you're gonna do that, because even with me, I'll go occasionally and I'll do it just in case like let's say we having like a party or we going out and I'll say, all right, I'm just gonna have one beer or one glass of whatever. And I can literally just chill off of that for months because I'm not doing it for the sole reason of I just want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and definitely bringing what you brought up, people doing it to escape, that can be every once in a while not a bad thing. But it very quickly becomes a double edged sword because if you let it get too out of hand, then it becomes a problem because doing something to escape every once in a while is fine. Doing something to escape all the time means there's an innate problem with your life. Like you either you can't handle your life, which can be splintered off to many different things. your life is your life is just something that you don't want to deal with. if you're coming back home every single day and just drinking to escape life, gaming to escape life, anything you use to escape life, and you're doing it consistently, then odds are you're probably looking at something you should change about your life, because at that point, the substance isn't the problem. It is, you're abusing the substance, but you're not abusing it because of the substance, you know?
Right. Damn, that actually hit hard for real. Because even you look at in the terms of like going a little further in terms of whether it was like drugs, gaming, hell, even social media, how some people will use it as an escape or an aspect to boost their morale because of other things. But the scariest part about it is the excuses that a lot of people will actually have with it will be like, oh, I had a rough day. I deserve to do X, Y, and Z. And don't get me wrong, like if you have like everybody has something that they had used to like calm them down, but once it literally becomes like I have to do this or I won't have a good time or I won't have a good day or whatever, like you said, that's when you need to look deeper into what the actual problem is.
Yeah, yeah, because at that point you formed, whether it be a severe or mild form, you formed a form of addiction. And you need to you need to stop, look at why you did. Most of these things everyone knows can be problematic, meaning for whatever reason, whatever's going on in your life, you purposely walked into that situation. And it's sometimes you have to step back and evaluate that. And a lot of times if you step back, you can change that. Even even if that means going into an uncertain state in your life. A lot of people are so scared to shake the foundations of their life when in reality, that is exactly what you need to do sometimes. Say you're living with your significant other and your significant other is the problem. You're in a toxic relationship. Sometimes you just gotta fuck it, cut it, move out, move back in with your parents, find someone, find a roommate, shake the foundation of your fucking life. And the sooner you do that, the sooner you can look at the rubble around you and start building a life that you don't feel the need to escape from. If it's a job that you perceive that you need, sometimes you just gotta fuck it. Be like, this is it, I'm done. And a lot of times you'll find you didn't actually need that job. A lot of people don't realize that they can get by doing just what they're doing with a slightly less paying job, or even go out and get a better opportunity. But that'll never come up unless you are willing to shake that foundation of your life.
Damn. That like everything you just said literally just hit me hard. I literally gotta jump into my final thoughts after that. Cause I definitely agree with everything you said. But overall, like my man Rob said, change is honestly change is honestly uncomfortable because because no one's actually used to everything like how everything goes through. Like people like things change every day. But it's better to do that and adapt with the times because if you don't, you'll never actually get anywhere in life, whether it's your relationships, friendships, or anything. That's why I had told somebody the other day that don't be afraid to reestablish yourself and take up for yourself because some people will act like it's a good thing to stand up for yourself until you do it to them. But if that's what you have to do in order to get the results that you want, then go for it. So remember, nothing is actually impossible. It's never impossible to change. You just have to be willing to look yourself in the mirror and be like, where am I at in my life? What do I need to do? And then do it.
And understand that, because I've also been in positions where I thought that, honestly, I was correct in it all. And as I said throughout the podcast, there were many things that forced me to put that into question. And once you're actually forced to put things into a question in a way that isn't, how do I put it, that isn't detrimental to you,
Right.
once you're at a point where you've already lost everything. Say you've lost everything that you held dear. You lost that relationship that you wanted to make work so bad. You lost that job that you liked for whatever reason. Like whatever it is, you've lost something important. Once you hit that point and you are forced to put certain things into a broader perspective, those are the times that you will change the most. Is in those hard between two rocks, nowhere else to go but forward moments.
Yep. Couldn't couldn't have said it better myself, man.
Yeah. Um. What do we got for next week? Do you know, Quan? What do we
Next
got in the
week,
doc?
next week we have the topic for a boss versus a leader.
Oh, a boss versus a leader. This one should be an absolute fun one.
I can't wait
All right.
because we've been on fire, man. And I'm telling y'all, like, as much as we've been doing this, like, the when you actually see us get a lot further, y'all gonna be in for some heavy stuff for real.
Oh yeah, definitely. I can't wait. I can't wait. I've already had a few ideas circling in my head that I would need to put in the doc. We're starting to hit some really good topics, and I'm really enjoying it.
Absolutely. We'll be back next week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Tune in.
All right, guys. See you then.
Peace and love.
And we